If you asked anyone about Santa Claus, they'd likely be able to tell you a range of different things about him. He lives in the North Pole, they'd say, and he has a massive factory where his elves produce toys. He enjoys the frequent cookie and milk, as well as the odd Guinness here and there, because deep down, he's actually a raging alcoholic. Okay, maybe not that last one, but the legend of Santa Claus, or Saint Nicholas as he's known, has spawned a plethora of many colourful and vivid tales about who he is and how he came to be. In this video, I'll aim to break down the historical side of Santa Claus and show you how one pious bishop in the 3rd and 4th century would become one of the most recognised cultural figures. His name was Nicholas, and he was said to have been born in the late 200 AD in Patara in what is now modern-day Turkey. Some accounts note him as being of Greek descent, as well as being considered to be a most generous man, one who would show the utmost of compassion and love to his fellow man. He would often give away a lot of his money to the poor and hungry until eventually he donated everything he had and dedicated his life to travelling to help those in need. A common story spun about St. Nicholas during his travels in the early 4th century is that he saved 3 poor sisters from being sold into slavery by delivering 3 bags of gold to their father so that it might be used in their dowry. Another tale has it that St. Nicholas once visited an inn where the innkeeper had murdered 3 boys. The innkeeper had dismembered their bodies and hid them in the basement in barrels. Not only did Nicholas seemingly sense the crime, but he was said to have resurrected the 3 boys as well. It's said to have been one of the things amongst his generosity and good nature that made him the patron saint of children. His reputation of moral piety is not the only feature of his character that is noted though. He was said to be fiery and defiant, particularly of the Roman Emperor Constantius, who during the Great Persecution in the year 303 would have Bibles burned and priests forced into renouncing Christianity. As a result, St. Nicholas spent 10 years in prison until Constantine the Great, who succeeded his father Constantius, ended the persecution of Christianity. Word of his kindness and heroics soon spread, and he would be known as something as a protector of the innocent. When he died, his death was celebrated with a feast on December the 6th, a tradition that has continued even today amongst the faithful, where December the 6th is considered to be a day of good fortune. By the Renaissance period, St. Nicholas was one of the most well-known and popular saints in Europe. But how did he become to be the red-faced, white-bearded, jolly chimney intruder that we know today? Well, St. Nicholas's fame would see him become the patron saint of many ideas from the year 1200 to the year 1500, including the patron of celebration, gifts, and children. However, after the Protestant Reformation in the year 1500, which saw the reforming of the ideals of the Roman Catholic Church, St. Nicholas fell out of favour across much of Northern Europe. But the Protestants were met with a problem. With the idea of St. Nicholas abolished, the idea of the saint bringing children gifts was gone too. In many cases, that job fell to baby Jesus, and the celebration of Christmas was moved from December the 6th to the 25th. But the idea of an infant child, regardless of it being God's son, didn't have the same appeal as the saint, a fully grown man who would have the capacity and ability to make such a journey to deliver gifts. But St. Nicholas would maintain a positive reputation when the veneration of saints would begin to be discouraged, and he would be as popular as he always was in other areas of Europe. It wouldn't be until the end of the 18th century did St. Nicholas begin to make his way into American culture. It would be reported in New York newspapers that Dutch families gathered to honour his death in the years of 1773 and 1774. In Dutch though, he was known as Sinterklaas, short for Sint Nicolaas, which is Dutch for Saint Nicholas. The name eventually evolved into Santa Claus. A man named John Pintard, a member of the New York Historical Society, decided to one day distribute cuts of wood in 1804, which had the engraving of now familiar images of Santa. These included stockings filled with toys. In 1809, American writer Washington Irving helped to boost the popularity of Santa Claus when he referred to St. Nicholas as the patron saint of New York in his book titled The History of New York. As St. Nicholas's prominence grew, descriptions of what he looked like began to form, including a red waistcoat and a broad-brimmed hat. By the mid-1800s, stores began advertising for Christmas shopping, and the culture around gift-giving at Christmas, despite already being a custom, only grew in importance. This would not go without the newly featured image of Santa Claus to help promote the sale of goods. The image and idea of Santa Claus would appeal to children, so much so that they began to visit the stores, which would mean their parents would visit the stores, and thus began the screaming tantrums we see in stores today, when a parent tells their child no, it's too expensive. The Salvation Army would also incorporate Santa Claus into their work by having their volunteers dress up as Santa Claus and patrol the streets of their community to obtain donations. Even today, you can see many dressed up as Santa Claus, ringing bells on street corners. We also can't forget the 1822 poem entitled An Account of a Visit from St. Nicholas, which was written by Clement Clark Moore, an Episcopal minister. It's this poem that is largely responsible for the way in which we perceive Santa Claus today. Moore would describe Santa descending down chimneys as a means to access a property to leave gifts, as well as borrowing from the popular idea that Santa flew around in a sleigh led by 8 reindeers. In 1881, political cartoonist Thomas Nast illustrated parts of Moore's poem to create the first image of our modern-day Santa Claus. His cartoon, which appeared in Harper's Weekly, depicts Santa Claus as a cheerful round man with a full white beard holding a sack of toys. It's Nast who would be responsible for giving Santa a bright red suit, trimmed with white fur. He'd also go on to create Santa's North Pole workshop, his elves, and even his wife, Mrs. Claus. Santa Claus has not been the only giver of gifts to have been inspired by St. Nicholas though. Similarly, Christkind, meaning Christ child, or Kris Kringle, were believed to deliver gifts to well-behaved children in Germany and Switzerland. Christkind was also thought to have been an angelic being who accompanied the original St. Nicholas on his holiday journey. Meanwhile in Russia, another tale speaks of an elderly woman named Babushka, who purposely gave the wrong directions to the 3 wise men on their journey to Bethlehem. Feeling bad about it afterwards, she sought after the 3 wise men to point them in the right direction, but she couldn't find them. As a way to make amends, Babushka is now said to visit children in Russia on January 5th, where she leaves gifts by their bedside in the hopes that one of them is baby Jesus, and thus be forgiven for tricking the 3 wise men in the first place. On the other hand, in Italy, there exists a similar story about a woman named La Befana, who is said to be a kind witch that rides on a broomstick down chimneys to deliver toys. Whatever your interpretation of Santa Claus, I do hope you've all been on your best behaviour. Thanks for watching today's video, and if you've enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Honestly, this year has been pretty mad. I've seen the channel skyrocket in growth, and I'm at the point that I'd never thought I'd reach. I'm so grateful for all the support you guys have given me over the year, and I really want to say a big thank you to all of you who've been watching. Whether you're new here or if you've been here since April, I'd like to raise my glass to you and wish you all a Merry Christmas. Until the next time, guys.